Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Suffer Up podcast with Nate and Ryan. We're super excited today to be having one of our guests on today, Mr. Jeremy Vandelinder. He is a pastor and is now a author of a soon-to-be published book, Triumph Over Trauma, and we'll get into that in a little bit later of the episode. But before we dive into this, we just don't want to do a quick thank you to our sponsor of the show, and that is Sofsocs. Sofsocs makes a compression-fitting running sock for your feet. They are a toe sock. They're veteran owned, and we have absolutely enjoyed them while we've been doing miles on our feet, wearing them, not only running, but also working in the hot days of the summer. So we're super thankful for who they are and what they've done in supporting us and our mission here at Suffer Up. We do have a discount code for them, and that is Suffer10. If you are interested in trying a pair of the socks, you can go to our link tree. There'll be a link in the bio there, and you can click on it, and at the very top, you'll see that. Also want to put in a quick plug for Mind Over Miles that we're going to be doing. I will be running a 50-kilometer run through a very rural part of America to raise money for an organization called Next Rung. Next Rung is an organization that helps first responders combat and deal with mental health, illness, and issues in the service. We're super thankful for who they are and what they've done for the fire service as a whole. And if you would like to donate or support that and donate some money that's going directly to Next Rung, there's also a link in our link tree to click on it and make any donation that you feel led or called to do. So we're so thankful for the show and what it has brought and the opportunities that have come through the show. So without further ado, we just want to introduce Mr. Jeremy Vandelinder. He is on the air with us today, and let him tell us a little bit about who he is and a little bit of his background. So Jeremy, if you just want to take it over and start talking about who you are and some of your background and history.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much for having me on. I'm super excited to be here. Appreciate the podcast, and really, I appreciate you guys having me on. But I'm loving the mission that you guys are after, and it's a great opportunity to talk about pain, struggle, healing, and that's really kind of in many ways what I've dedicated large swaths of my life to is just helping people, suffer through and get better on the other side. And I think we try to just push past suffering sometimes, and we don't really um, heal well from it. And as much as we can support each other and help each other in that effort, so I appreciate you guys and what you're doing. Um, as far as my background, originally got my EMT license in 1997 when I was in college. My best friend and I decided that would be a great way to work our way through college. So been really involved in emergency services as a first responder ever since then in some form or fashion. EMS, did a stint as a public safety officer and as a firefighter. And so I've been kind of involved for, some two and a half decades now, I guess, in EMS mostly, and then other aspects of public safety. The more recent years have been focused more on helping others, helping in particular first responders and those who have gone through tragedy, helping folks with crisis intervention, traumatic stress, those kind of things. As you mentioned, I am a pastor as well, and so those kind of worlds collide in many ways, and that's really what our mission is. Excited to have our book coming out. When we're recording this, it's going to come out in a few days, but by the time this airs, the book will have just come out. So Triumph Over Trauma in July of 2025. So super excited about that. My co-author and I are excited about seeing that hit the press.
Very cool. Yeah, we are actually really excited about that. I challenged Ryan. I said, yeah, we need to order this book and read it because it just from the high level that we've looked at it, looks like it ties in quite well with what we're trying to do here. So we're really excited to see where this book takes you. So yeah, that's congrats on the publishing and everything. I know it takes a lot of work to get a book out, and so we hope that it does extremely well for you. And I'd love to kind of hear a high level synopsis of what the book is about, maybe a little bit later in the episode.
Sure.
So you were in the pastoral world for several years, and kind of that trend you've been called to ministry and doing that for quite a while. And so you geographically moved over to Texas, correct? And what type of
Right.
work are you doing there with the department that you're with and some of your background or experience there.
Right. So we moved to Texas in 2010 to plant a church and to start a new church here in Round Rock, just north of Austin. As far as my involvement with area departments, there's a number of departments I have been involved with in different capacities. Everything from just coming in and teaching uh, classes on crisis intervention, traumatic stress, all the way through being a chaplain for one of the departments, a couple of the departments here. Also serve in that role for Texas Task Force One, which is the urban search and rescue asset for the state of Texas, as well as a FEMA asset. It's one of a handful of FEMA teams that get called up to disaster zones. So we serve a number of departments in a greater or lesser capacity, everything from simply consulting, helping them build out programs for peer support, all the way through working with them on a regular basis. So it varies widely. And in addition to that, I also teach a number of classes for the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. I'm certified to teach 3 different trainings for them. So I'll also come into departments or areas and teach those that are involved in crisis intervention, peer support teams, and that kind of thing. So it varies widely depending on the specific department.
Yeah, so one thing I found interesting was that the peer support is kind of a new thing that's actually being tied into task force as like a deployable asset. So are you kind of part of that with Texas Task Force? Are you like deployable when it comes to this peer support?
Correct, correct. My role would be chaplain in that paradigm. And a lot of times the chaplains are kind of ancillary to the core mission. FEMA also limits the number of bodies, like they have a certain contingency that is defined as a deployment group. So sometimes it's a little bit of a round peg in a square hole, trying to figure out exactly how chaplaincy and peer support fit into that. But we're trying to really increase the support that's available to those who go to disaster zones.
Yeah, when I heard that the first time, I was blown away at how it how they're utilizing that as an asset because that's an extremely important part. Like we got people going out and working rubble piles and dealing with seeing horrific things and extracting. A lot of times it's a recovery mission. Hopefully we can
Right.
save a life in those instances, but they're exposed to those rescuers are exposed to an abundancy of disaster and just the challenges that come with that. Do you have any experience with um, being in those areas or being part of any of those incidences where you've had to kind of step in and help the guys at all, or any way that you could kind of just share some sort of an experience where that was applicable?
So limited, very limited with a task force. My involvement has been pretty limited. The main office is a couple hours away from me. Most of it has been with just kind of regular calls and that kind of thing. One of the challenges is, these are all guys from that are pulled out of their department and then sent as part of the task force. Um, some of them are going back to departments that have a very robust care program. Others of them are not, so it's very inconsistent as to what kind of care they get when they go back to their regular department. Most of my experience has been related to the regular cadence of calls that takes place in the local fire department.
Sure. Okay. So you are heavily involved with all of the crisis intervention and everything else. What so obviously when I knew you from years back, but as far as the sovereign consulting, do you just want to share a little bit of what that is and what you're trying to do with that?
Yeah, so sophron is it's a Greek word, it's an ancient Greek word, and it was used in the classical Greek world, and it describes it's kind of there's not a good English word for it. It kind of is this idea of being well balanced, having a sound mind, The idea of wisdom is woven into it. We might say in our vernacular, kind of well adjusted, and then the word kind of has different versions, different forms throughout ancient Greek literature. I myself am a Christian, so the Christian New Testament is important to me. We even see it start to pop up in biblical literature in the New Testament, where the word is used by biblical writers to refer to that same idea, like sound mindedness. And so we named the company, the consulting training company, Sofron, just kind of in reference to what we are trying to accomplish in our mission: a sound mind, a steady heart, a wise ability to navigate life. So that's really what the kind of the name means. And then we're doing really a lot of what I said a minute ago. We are available to respond to crisis situations. But what we really are passionate about doing is helping departments, companies, um, even military contingents to prepare their folks well for what they're going to face and the ability to support one another. So, training is a big part of what we do. Of course, the book is an outgrowth of that as well. And as we're able to put that in people's hands, more ongoing support. So, yeah, training, consulting, response really are all components of what we're trying to do to promote that sound mindedness.
Yeah, that's really good. One thing that we've hit on a lot here at Supper Up is when we're faced with challenges, trials, or sufferings. I think that everybody focuses on training our bodies and training, to make our bodies strong and healthy on what we eat and how we exercise. But I think a portion of that is often missed is our mind, and that we don't do a good job at training and preparing our mind and our spirits and hearts to align with what we need to do in order to be strong and vigilant in those areas. So, for our listeners, is there a way or something like, I guess, just kind of walk us through what you would do for some sort of, like, how you would coach somebody to help prepare them for these things? And I know this is like a really big topic that we could probably talk about for hours, but is there something that you would kind of like intro level, how you would teach somebody to really equip themselves to be ready to face any sort of like horrific trauma or incident?
Yeah, so that is a big question, of course, because I literally have a whole day course to answer that question. But there are a number of ways that we can prepare for the things that certain folks are going to face. I mean, if you're a soldier, if you're a first responder, you are at some point going to face a cataclysmic event. In fact, for many, they're going to face more in a year than some people will face in their whole lives. And so it is a kind of a body, mind, and soul. There is physical preparation. Your body takes the brunt of a fight or flight response. So when your brain sounds that alarm bell and floods the body with neurochemicals so that you can fight, flight, or in some cases you'll freeze. The better shape the body's in, the better you're able to handle those. So there's a physical aspect to traumatic events, but there's also a mental or some might even say spiritual component to that. Um, in recent years, the literature has explored this concept of moral injury, which becomes a pretty regular theme in our book. Um, Gary, my co-author, Gary Fisher, is a colonel in the Army and chaplain with several combat tours under his belt. It really was tasked by the Army to explore this topic of moral injury in depth. And really, moral injury is that recognition that there is this non-physical part of us, this non-corporal aspect of humanity that suffers a damaging effect. That's not necessarily the nervous system. There is certainly the nervous system component, but it's a soul deep wound that takes place. And the literature has captured it with this term moral injury. And so I think the way we prepare ourselves for disastrous events, cataclysmic events, really is the 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 meat and potatoes of how we prepare ourselves to deal with any hardship in life. The better physical shape we're in, the better spiritual shape we're in, the better we're going to be able to equip to face those difficult events. The other thing that I would say is the number one predictor of recovery from trauma is one's social network. And so when we see people who are isolated, um, they're going to have a much harder time recovering, bouncing back. Those who have a stronger social network, those who have people that can be around them and support them and encourage them, kind of go through this together, are going to typically recover better, bounce back better. The term is resilience. They tend to be more resilient. So I think that's a very important aspect of what we're talking about as well. Those are just some quick, big picture answers that come to my mind, but we can explore that, more depth as you see fit.
That's awesome. I love that you brought up the community aspect because that's something that we really push a lot in our mission here is developing that community around you of people that will be there and support you whenever you're going through anything, whether it be good or bad. Do you find that in that research that the community aspect should be or needs to be more of peers, like other people that have been through it with you? Or similar things, or just anyone in your corner? Like, could your mom, who's never been through the same kind of traumatic incident as you, could she be someone to lean on?
So yes, but in different ways. The peer aspect of it is going to have a component that, like, so let's take first responders, right? Your experience, my background as well, is with first responders. There is a sense in which fellow first responders who have endured similar tragedy are going to support you in a way that your kind of broader community, civilian community, is not going to be able to.
Yeah,
Likewise, there's an intimacy there that exists with the family. They may not fully understand what you're going through in the sense of experientially understand it, but that support system is very important as well. So I don't think it's an either or. I
yeah,
do think that the peer support, and a lot of what we're trying to do is help departments to build that peer support program, so that when someone walks up to you, there's someone who's worn the uniform as well. And there's no, like, you don't understand what I'm going through mental block, because it's a peer. Yeah, you may not have
hmm.
seen this exact call, but you've seen something like it. You've had to recover from something like this before.
I'm sure that's
So,
tough to get departments to kind of open up, or not really departments, but individuals, because men typically don't want to talk about their feelings, but that is a very important aspect to be there for one another because especially in the peer setting where we've all been through similar things and it's nice to talk to somebody who's been through that and come through the other side.
yeah, I mean, I think there's some trepidation with the F word, feelings.
Mm.
Um, but
Yeah,
and I don't think it has to focus necessarily on that. Like, I'll use words like experience, um, um, because we have similar experience. That there may have certainly be an emotional component to that. There may be a feeling component to that. But we all have similar experiences, and some of that is mental, physical, emotional, all of that. The other thing is too, I think that preparation time beforehand is important. I will say this, late '90s, when I first got my EMT license, I don't remember any training related to, this is what you're going to face out there, and here are the resources that are available. And so I think we still have a long way to go in emergency services, but I do feel like it is improved dramatically in the last couple decades that I've observed the first responder community. I think there's much more openness, there's more recognition that we need to be caring for each other surrounding these type of events. And so I'm encouraged in the direction that we're headed.
yeah.
There can be
It
some
seems like it used
challenges
to
with
be
it.
very. Sorry,
hmm
go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm just to say, just to wrap that up, there can be some challenges with it certainly. but I do see us headed in a positive direction.
Yeah, I agree. Seems like he used to be very reactive, and now they're doing a better job at getting proactive and talking about resources ahead of time.
Yeah, of course, my experience is skewed because typically when I'm talking to departments, that's what they're trying to do. Like they're trying to, you know, build out a program or that kind of
Hmm.
thing. But it does seem that way to me as well. Now, what will happen in some instances is, I'll be called to, line of duty death, help a department walk through that process, and in the aftermath of that, they're saying, yeah, we should have probably been better prepared for this. Now what do we do? And so that's when sometimes we'll have the opportunity to help them build out a program that's going to be more sustainable, uh, more proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, when you said that, there's something that I've said before, and something that Ron and I both are learning through this Supper Up podcast. And as people listen to this, and we share some of our personal experiences, and we're sharing a lot of the things that either we've gone through or struggle with. Ron and I have little, very different backgrounds, but the common underlying theme is one: we're both believers and both have Christ in our lives as professing believers through what he did for us on the cross. But as we share this message with people who aren't even believers are still open, and they're opening up to us as people, as just men, because of us being vulnerable towards like sharing, right? So I'm sitting here, I actually wrote it down real quick, and I said basically vulnerability causes openness. And so by being vulnerable with other people and sharing that first feeling, if you will, like you said, the word feelings or
Yeah.
experiences, it definitely causes a lot of people to really kind of stir their minds and get into the deep dark hole of your mind, and you can oftentimes feel trapped in that. And so I really love how what essentially the myth behind what you guys are doing is just allowing people to really kind of open up and kind of share, and figuring out how your brain works and figuring out those connections.
Right. Right. Yeah. A couple quick comments on that. So, one of the things that we were really intentional about in the book is trying to make sure that the book would connect with people from a variety of backgrounds. Gary and I are both from the Christian faith, and so our faith obviously shapes how we see the world and how we approach healing. But the book isn't really written just for Christians. It's really written for people who are hurting. And we hope we successfully argued the case that, you know, just the physical is not enough, that there's a part of you that is intangible and that you really need to care for that aspect of yourself as well. And so whether someone is rooted in a faith or not, we're still arguing that there is a spiritual component that needs to be cared for. We're trying not to be preachy in the book. We try to be honest about who we are and what we believe, but at the same time inviting to people who maybe religious, not maybe skeptical, or somewhere on the spectrum in between. And we want you to know that this book is for you to help you through the invisible wounds that you've suffered.
Yeah, no, that hits on a fantastic point too. Ron and I have had this conversation before. We obviously both are, like you said, believers and believe on Christ. However, we hope that we never come across as preachy. Obviously, there's a
Hmm.
truth there that we want the world to hear, but I've been overwhelmed by the conversations that we've had by opening up in for me specifically in the firehouse. And I've heard, the phrase of like, well, you can believe what you believe. And I have what I believe. I said, well, there's still a commonality here, man. It, we're still people, and you're going through a hard time. So let's talk about
Sure.
how you're going to navigate that. And that is just kind of the overwhelming theme of us, of what we want to do here as well. So that's refreshing to hear, and that the book is for everybody, and that anybody can pick that book up and gain some sort of insight into the triumph over the trauma that's there.
Right.
With
Right.
all of that, um, obviously, you're dealing with a lot of other people's burdens, right? And it's very clear that we're supposed to share our burdens with other people. And so when you're going into a group to consult for whatever situation that they've been given, obviously you carry a little bit of that weight with you as a leader and as a organizer of that conversation. So if you're comfortable with it, would you mind sharing some of the tactics that you use as more on the leadership role of trying to walk somebody through that type of conversation and what that looks like? Some tactics that you have that you've equipped yourself with in order to, you're essentially accepting the weight of whatever it is that you're about to talk about.
So do you mean tactics for how I am interacting with that person, or do you mean how I've learned to deal with it as I kind of face the overflow of that?
Kind of more the second point of what you said. So you are now, like, you're in a leadership role. You're not going through, you're not living these situations, but you're hearing about them and you're having to deal with them and help them cope with it.
Right.
So that in any form of ministry, that carries a ton of weight. And so what are some tactics that you have in order to kind of navigate that? And then obviously you're a husband and father, so you come home and you got to also then flip that switch, and that carries its own special burden. So is there anything that
Right.
because we might have a listener that's in a similar role as yours that's finding themselves like that can obviously carry you down as well. So
Sure.
what are some ways that you navigate that?
Yeah, the way that you help others is the way you help yourself. So you have to practice what you preach. So when I'll take a team in, I'm thinking of a few years ago when we went to a line of duty death, and I took a team with me. Um, and there was a point at which, we had done 2 debriefings in the morning. We had another one scheduled in the afternoon, and they had lunch there's lunch there at the firehouse, where we could have eaten, and we looked at each other. We were like, we got to go out somewhere else. Like, I gotta separate, take some time to breathe. And then, at the close of all of that, we're kind of debriefing one another, um,
Mm.
providing support for one another. Okay, what are your next steps? How are you gonna, bounce back from everything that you've faced today? And then we check in with each other after a few days. So it's not really that different. It just has to be, um, you've got to think about the way that you're helping other people and be disciplined in providing that same help for yourself. And that's where a team is very helpful. A peer support team is very helpful. Some of those same resources that you are referring other people to are the same resources that you have available. So that community, again, that theme comes up, right? That community of people that stand with you and support you is important as well.
Even though you're the leader or the guy kind of head in the spear of recovery, it's important to not forget that you also can utilize the same services and use your own methods.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're not Superman, and at a certain point you have to. Rescuers by their nature tend to be, let's solve the problem and kind of stuff down um, what's going on with us. And honestly, there's a place for that. I get a
Yeah,
little
sometimes
annoyed
the
at the
mission just needs to get
literature.
done.
That's right. That's right. I get a little annoyed at the literature that talks, you know, kind of the psychology community can be really hard on first responders, and the fact that they're not all touchy feely and in tune with their emotions. Well, the reality of it is sometimes you want people that are gonna kick butt, right? You want
Yeah, you
you
can
want them to
be.
come do the mission, and you don't want them to sit around and sing kumbaya. You want them to get the job done, and that's important. And actually, that's part of what makes them functional in that kind of a capacity. I think what we have to realize is there's a time that you're done. The mission's done. You're out of service now. Now you got to be a human again. So it's a both and. I'm glad for guys that can stuff it down sometimes, right? And while they're on scene, they get stuff done.
Yeah,
um, but they have to realize that they're still human, and there still has to be that time where they hang up the Superman cape.
absolutely. How many guys do you think that you have counseled over the years?
Oh goodness, yeah, I have no idea.
A lot.
I mean, yeah, I mean, certainly in the hundreds, maybe in the thousands. It's and some of it's pretty informal. Like, it's just sitting on the bench outside the firehouse chatting about what you're going through, all the way through formal counseling. There's a variety there, so it would be virtually impossible to count.
Gotcha. Well, through all that counseling, you've certainly heard of your fair share of traumatic stories and painful things that people have gone through, and not discrediting the pain that comes with that. But have you seen any positive effects following these traumatic or suffering incidents that you don't think would have been possible without the person going through that?
Yeah. So quick little story. Um, my grandfather was a welder. He was a pipe fitter by nature. I don't even think he finished high school, frankly. But he was a smart dude. He could invent all kinds of stuff, and welding was his trade. And I remember when I was a kid, one time at his house. They lived up on like 40 acres of woods in the mountains of North Carolina, and a neighbor brought by he had a bush hog with the shaft that comes off the PTO, it's called, that comes uh, off the tractor, and it spins the mower, and it had broken, and he asked my grandpa if he could weld it. So he welded it, and I watched my grandpa do his work. And as the guy's driving away, I remember my grandpa saying to me, "It will never break in that spot again."
Mm.
Now, he of course was very proud of his work, right? And he had done it right. And he said, the weld, if you do it right, the weld is the strongest part. And so it kind of stuck with me, that little story and looking at that weld, because the reality is that there is a growth that can come, a strengthening that can come as we recover from terrible events that we never would want to repeat. But as we look back, we say, you know what, I've grown, I've strengthened, I've become stronger in some ways because of what I went through. Now, the term in the literature for that is post-traumatic growth, right? As over and against post-traumatic stress. As we learn to recover from that the literature uses the term post-traumatic growth. That's really what we're talking about. Is like,
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was a proper term for that.
Yeah, that's what we want people. That's what we want to inspire people to. Like, you don't have to be defined by your trauma. You can be defined by the growth that comes perhaps out of a terrible set of circumstances.
So do you think that because we just recorded an episode, it's going to tie in really well with this. And do you think, like, somebody that goes through the mental struggles of anxiety, depression, PTSD, and the certain things that trigger them to have an emotional response to whatever they see or smells or sights, do you think that somebody can come back to 100% back to baseline, what they were before the service, or whatever service that was? Do you think that they can come back all the way back to the beginning, or do you think that they're always going to carry a little bit of that? They just know how to cope with it and deal with it better.
I would say that they're never going to be the same. And if you expect to be back to quote unquote normal, your expectations need to be recalibrated. What I want to inspire people to is, I'm looking at a welded spot. I'm stronger. I'm not the same. In fact, in many ways, I'm stronger than I was. Can you get back to normal? No, you probably won't. That's by nature what traumatic events do to us. They change us. But I don't think they have to change us for the worse. I think they can change us for the better. And that's what I don't want people to get, kind of this hopelessness, this victim mentality, this I'm defined by my trauma. Let's work together to be defined by overcoming that. And so, no, they won't actually ever get back to quote unquote normal. But I trust that there is a place for people to actually grow through that. I don't know if that fully answers your question or what you're getting at.
Oh, it does, 100%. Yeah, no, I think that ties in really well, because I mean, through my own story and suffering, it's like I'm exposed to these things and I see certain things or whatever, and I'm immediately triggered by some of those things, and I respond. I used to respond in a negative way, but now I can see it, and in the deep hole of your mind, I'm able to navigate it and be like, nope, I know where I'm at. I'm okay, and I'm stronger because of that. and we had just done this recording talking about the same topic of being able to, like, this is now the new normal, but I'm able to process these things better now because I've been able to learn the coping mechanisms to be able to navigate them. And so I
Right.
think that that point really ties in nicely with what you're saying here.
Yeah. So your amygdala is the part of the brain that stores, those most potent memories because it's an alarm system. It sets off the alarm and then an emergency is at hand. So sights, sounds, smells, and anybody who's been exposed to combat or has been exposed to public safety probably has a whole set of those things that are stored there. I mean, I can't see a white Ford Mustang without seeing a partially decapitated guy. I mean, it's in there. It's never going to go away. Um, so you're always going to have those things that are stored in there. But the difference that we're trying to help people towards is, okay, they're going to be there. We don't want you to be incapacitated by them. And I think that may be what you're getting at with your question earlier about, getting back to normal. They're always going to be there, but, learning how to work through them, to cope with them, to live life going forward is valuable.
Absolutely. If you had a kind of to wrap things up a little bit here, if you had a life message that you could share with everybody, um, maybe not in the full length of a book. I understand that a book is probably your life message, but if you had a short life message that you could share with everybody, whether they're going through something or they've been through something, what do you think that that would be?
Well, I'm assuming, in this framework, we're talking about those who have endured trauma. And I
Yes.
think the core message that we want to get to people, and this is really what we were after in the book, is offering people real hope. People who are carrying, hidden wounds, like we were talking about earlier, whether first responders or combat vets, people who've been in a high stress environment. Um, there is hope. There is help. There is the opportunity to move forward and to define your life not by the trauma that you've endured, but by the recovery from it, the strengthening that can be derived from it, not be debilitated by it, but to overcome it. And we want to inspire people to that. We want people to see that vision for what they can be. You know, things may be dark for you right now, things may be difficult for you right now. Don't get lost in that hole. Know that you can grow from here, and you may be deeply wounded. You may be struggling. You may be looking for hope, but hope is available. There are many others like you who have thought things were hopeless, but when they found the right support network, when they found the right resources to tap into, they were able to recover. Not easy, it's not quick, it's not, a silver bullet, but there's a road ahead of you that can lead you to a fruitful and fulfilling life.
And I love that message of hope and just the reality check that it's not a fast, instant fix. We talked about that in a recent episode as well. That it took time to break down or break yourself down going through these events, and it's going to take time to build yourself back up. That weld, as you illustrated earlier, that weld didn't happen overnight, right? Or instantly. Your grandfather had to learn how to weld, and then he had to perform the weld, and all that took time.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, for some people it does. So for some people it's a series of events. For some people it's one big horrific event that may stick in their mind. So everybody's experience is different, but chances are good that it is going to take a little while. It's going to take some work um, to get on the upside of this. Um, and so the healing probably doesn't come overnight.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. With all this and what you're doing and the mission that you guys have, and I'm super, like, motivated and excited for what you guys are doing, and I think that this resource that's available, is fantastic. So could you just share what resources and stuff if a chief or something is listening to this and like, man, we really need to get this guy into our department, or or a group that's like, my guys need to hear this message. How can they contact you? What are some resources that you can offer? And like, you're able to obviously come into departments if you just want to share some of that. And what are some
For sure.
resources that you can offer?
For sure. So the best place to find us is at our website, Sophron, SOPHRON.consulting. And so you can find information about us there. You can find the different trainings that we offer, as well as our contact information if you want to schedule us either to come into your department to do trainings, to do larger events. There's several listed there, but then we've even got a category for customized. Like, let's talk. How can we help you? How can we serve you? Serve your department? Serve your company? There's a lot of companies that face their employees potentially face difficult events. There's a few airlines out there, for example, that have a full peer support team that's nationally, internationally mobilizable. I don't know if mobilizable is a word, but I think you know what I mean, right? So whether it's a private company, whether it's a public safety department, we're happy to help. And then Sophron.consulting would probably be the best way to get a hold of us. Did I answer that whole question, or was there more to that?
No, that's perfect. I just wanted to have a way that they can contact you there, and I will also be putting all of your contact information into the link of or the description of this podcast as well, so people can click on that, as well as your book that's going to be coming out soon, or when somebody's listening to this, it's already live. And where can they find your book, and the publishings of that? Where can they get a copy of it?
Yeah, so as far as the book, we're super excited. So July of 2025, depending on when you're listening to this, book should be out. Even now, while we're recording this, it's available for pre-order, and you can get it anywhere the books are sold. You can find it on our website under the shop section, but you can find it anywhere your bookseller of choice. And hey, we'd love it if you go into your local bookstore and say, "Hey, do you guys have this book?" And if they say no, say, "Oh, you got to get it in. Can you get it in?" Because that kind of prompts those bookstores to get it on their radar. There's a lot of books out there, and ours is intended to be really just pretty practical. Gary and I are thinking about the hundreds, maybe thousands of guys and gals that we've had the privilege of serving over the years. We didn't want it to be highly academic. There's some, of that in there. We didn't want it to be highly scientific. There's some of that in there. We didn't want it to be highly theological. There's some of that in there, but it's not really. It's intended to be just helping, average Joe firefighter, average Jane soldier who's gone through bad stuff, and helping people who have gone through difficult things in just a very practical, nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes way.
Yeah, that's great. We joke, us firemen and military, we're simple people, right? We if you can give it to us in a simple form, we will understand it and we can comprehend it and we'll do whatever, but we just need it in a simple form.
Yeah.
And I really think if there's a chief or a captain or somebody that's in an administrative role at their department, diving into this and caring for your people is a great way not only to enhance your organization, but also will help with retention, because a lot of people leave their occupation, their livelihood, because of some of the things that we're talking about. And it doesn't need to be that way. I always say that I have the best job in the world. I love my job. But at the end of the day, it changed me a little bit and for the better now, because now I'm sitting here on a podcast talking to awesome people. And but at the end of the day, there was a time when I thought about leaving the service. For somebody who was very passionate about it, to say that they were thinking about leaving it because of these things is it's not cool. So if that's
right.
ultimately going to benefit them, then totally understand that. But
yeah,
I think
so
that this
search
is
for we've mentioned the book a couple times. I don't know how much we've hit the title. So Triumph Over Trauma. Search for Triumph Over Trauma. Vandelinder and Fisher, and you should be able to find it wherever books are sold. And then, as you said, yeah, any folks that we can help, private industry, um, peer support teams, departments, happy to help you. You know, build out a peer support program, build out your protocols for how you respond to disasters or the aftermath, helping your folks. Any of those kind of areas that we can help, we're happy to do it.
Awesome. Jeremy, thank you so much for getting on here with us and sharing a little bit about who you are. You're merited and vetted in this line of work, and your book is going to be fantastic. I will be getting a copy of it to read here, and yeah, just super thankful for who you are, what you're trying to do, and your mission behind all this. So I will be again putting a link to all this stuff in the description, so we'll be able to reference it quickly. So thank you so much, Jeremy, for getting on here with us. We really are thankful for your time and sharing your message.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I appreciate the mission that you're doing. Love to support it in any way we can.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you guys. We love you.